What do we really know about our past? Are we suffering from a collective memory loss? Who are we really, and where do we come from?
If you haven't seen this 3-part series on Stolen History, Lifting the Veil of Deception, I'm highly recommending you watch this as soon as you can.
Was there a technically advanced unified civilization on our planet less than 500 years ago?
In this video we're going to be looking at the World's Fairs in the States, particularly at the turn of the century.
The markers of this civilization. Was there a reset that destroyed large parts of our past, our knowledge and culture?
I think the World's Fairs are a key entry point into this field of research.
Nothing is as it seems. It's time for us to remember again and lift the veil of deception.
Wake up.
We begin this exploration with the Centennial International Exhibition in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 1876, they say, is the first World's Fair held on American soil. Held to mark the centennial anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, we are told. And you can see some of the structures here in this drawing. The main exhibition building, this one here, we are told was built in 18 months. And was the largest building in the world at the time, or so we're told. This is the Horticultural Hall, apparently built to be permanent, unlike the other buildings, which we're told were built to be temporary. Iron and glass frame, brick and marble foundation, 383 feet tall, or long, sorry, designed in the Moorish style, as you can see, as a tribute to the Crystal Palace in London's Great Exhibition. This one was damaged by a hurricane in 1954 and subsequently demolished. And here you can see the vastness of the scale, especially for that early time period, 1876. You can see some of the displays. Almost like a collecting of the wares of the world at the time. And there it is again, the Horticultural Hall. We also have the Liberty Bell on display, massive bell. And apparently the arm of the Statue of Liberty, we're told, was also on display at this exhibition. And interestingly, a lot of the designs for the buildings on this one were supposedly put out in September of 1873, so less than 3 years before the opening of the fair. Did they even have any of the ideas to build some of these structures? This is supposedly the opening day of that exhibition. And this exhibition was said to have run from May 10th to November 10th, 1876. And this gives you an idea of the vastness of the grounds themselves and how large these buildings actually were. Beautiful structures. Philadelphia, 1876 Centennial Exposition.
Wake up.
What do we really know about our past? Are we suffering from a collective memory loss?
Moving on to the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, 1893. Perhaps the most well-known of these World's Fairs from the time, the White City it has been referred to, and it has been heavily scrutinized on both sides of the aisle as far as this field of research is concerned. Said to commemorate the discovering of America by Christopher Columbus in 1492, a 400-year anniversary, although they held it 1 year later. This one is interesting, the Ferris wheel that could be found at this exhibition. Said to be the original Ferris wheel, designed by a George Washington Gale Ferris Jr., apparently. Now, this one was supposedly the answer to the Eiffel Tower that was built for the Paris exhibition in 1889. So this one had 36 cars. Each car had 40 revolving chairs in it, and it was able to each car was able to accommodate up to 60 people, giving it a total capacity of 2,160. Absolutely incredible for this time period to see such a work of construction. But then we do see all these spectacular structures. This is the Horticulture Hall, as you can see. And of course we are told that most of these buildings were meant to be temporary, and what you're looking at here is a shell covered in what we call staff, some sort of stucco-like compound that lasts a little while in the elements, but not a long time. Doesn't make a lot of sense when we look at the infrastructure under the bridge work going on here, how any of that could be said to be temporary. I think it's ridiculous. But it has been, like I said, debated on both sides of the aisle on this one. Many people turning to officialdom and the explanations and construction photos that were given to explain how these were built in such a short period of time. We have a 2-3 year time period for most of these to have gone up. And then at the end of the fair, there was a fire and a demolition process that went on to destroy much of what you're seeing here. And in many ways otherworldly, and this is why I'm as inspired to put together this compilation of what I consider to be the major world's fairs in America at that early time period. A setting of a narrative, I think, and a destruction of many of the jewels of the old world. And no doubt that some of these were built temporary. I wouldn't suggest this one was temporary whatsoever. But part of it to make the fair-going experience what the creators of the fair wanted it to be. I would suspect that maybe some of the statues and some of the smaller structures, but we're looking at infrastructure here. You can see the styling of the railing here, much like the styling of the railings on a lot of the permanent buildings from that time period. And everybody with their hats, their lead-lined hats, or is it mercury? You really have to wonder what's going through the minds of the people at the time. Also said to have been heavily lit up. And again, this is 1893, so very early time period. And again, are we looking at temporary structures meant for the pleasure of the fairgoers? And this exhibition in particularly said to have been the major inspiration in what we call the City Beautiful movement, which is responsible for much of the permanent beautiful architecture that apparently starts getting built all over the place in the Americas. So temporary buildings inspiring permanent buildings, I guess is what they want us to believe. This would be the modern day Museum of Fine Art, I believe, which does still stand. Now we are told this one was also built somewhat temporarily, but built a little bit better than the rest because it was supposed to be supposed to contain pictures and things like that, and had to have stronger walls. But then in I think it's the 20s, they decide they want to make it permanent, so they rebuild the whole thing, and it still stands to this day. One of the structures that comes down to us through time. The World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, 1893. Temporary? You tell me.
Was there a technically advanced unified civilization on Earth less than 500 years ago?
Next up we have the Tennessee Centennial and International Exposition, held in 1897 from May till October. Here we're looking at the Nashville Parthenon, which apparently was so admired by the locals that they rebuilt it out of permanent materials after having this temporary structure here. So make of that what you will, as usual. And like many of these World's Fair sites, the grounds, after it is demolished, becomes what's known as Centennial Park in Nashville. And you'll see this in a lot of the big cities. So I suspect when you're looking at these green spaces in a lot of these cities, most likely they were probably once upon a time these what we consider to be fairgrounds, and what we're told were temporary, but what may have been, and through the lens of the old world, what may have been a central meeting location for the citizens of that city. And here you get a sense of some of the architecture here. And lit up at night, and you have a pyramid next to the Parthenon. And you have this Greco-Roman style building as well. So the Tennessee Centennial and International Exposition in 1897 in Nashville. Moving on to the Trans-Mississippi Exposition in Omaha, Nebraska. This one took place 1 year later in 1898, we are told. Apparently the decision to hold this exposition was made in late 1895. So we're looking at less than 2 years, if that, to build everything that you're seeing here. And of course they'll tell us that it was all temporary, and that's why it was so easy to build so quickly, I suppose. But again, you're looking at infrastructure. You can see the brick lined walkways here along the water's edge. Nothing about that tells me that it is a temporary infrastructure. And these looking like a lot of permanent buildings that we might call courthouses or state capitol style buildings, often even churches or banks having that same look and style. Now this one held between June and November of 1898. Not a lot of visitors comparatively speaking. We're looking at 2.6 million, and they say, over that duration. The fairgrounds covered 180 acres. And again, you can see here in 1898, these things are lit up like a Christmas tree. And did you ever think that you would see this type of architecture in places like Omaha, Nebraska? And you can explain it away all you want as temporary, but as you look, your eyes tell you a different story. Why? I don't care if this is temporary. What do you have? 4 lions here? Statues with 4 lions. We've got eagles, wings spread out, and we have scratched in Omaha. This sign does not look like it fits everything else here. It's laughable to me. It really surprised me, this one. But I did do a video on Omaha. Actually, I did a video on every location that you're seeing in this video, except Chicago. Chicago is a very, very large old world metropolis that I have not yet covered in any depth. And again, you're seeing these supposed temporary structures riddled with people, not making any sense as to why would these be temporary. And it looks like we have a bit of a setting of the Western narrative with the Wild West show that was going on here in honor of Buffalo Bill Cody. The World's Fairs were definitely being used to paint a picture of the past and to direct a future for the people that, and no doubt a lot of these people very recently displaced from wherever they came from, trying to make a go of it in their new locations. Is this a temporary structure? What do you think? The Trans-Mississippi Exposition in Omaha, Nebraska. There you go. There's your temporary exposition. And I always wonder why the World's Fairs really aren't on our radar as far as history goes. It's more something that has been tucked under the rug, and one of the main reasons why I make this video for you. I think these are important parts of the past that need to be investigated a lot further than they have been. Sometimes they give us these depictions showing us there was nothing around here, but they decided they would build this absolutely phenomenal fairgrounds for a 6-month duration. Omaha, Nebraska, 1898. Moving on to the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York, 1901. This thing ran from May to November of that year. Again, the vastness of the scale is jumping out at you here. Or it should be. This is a famous exposition, famous for the assassination of the American President William McKinley in the Temple of Music. This is the Temple of Music here on the left. We'll see more of that as we move forward. Happened on September 6, 1901, we are told. Again, of course, all built in with temporary materials, as you do. And it looks like Congress pledged money to have this thing happen in March of 1899. So the wheels start turning 2 years before the exhibition is put on, we are told. That's not telling us a build time, that's just telling us a total duration from when the idea becomes seeded to when they open doors. This is interesting as well. You can see the foreground here looking very dirty. And then this leads us to wonder, were they dusting off and cleaning up the remnants of what was there and putting it on as a spectacle before they tear it all down. Now, I could have been wrong about the Palace of Music or the Music Hall where McKinley was. It's one of these two. I'm not sure, but it's certainly worth looking into further. The Liberal Arts Building. And they say it took a demolition company, the Chicago House Wrecking Company, about a year to demolish and clear their land. So really these were built in less than 2 years, and it took about a year to demolish these things. So that should tell you something as well. There's much more to the story of these expositions than we have been told. In here is a great look again of the grounds, the area now known as Delaware Park in Buffalo. And of course I always welcome the local flair. And this is a good close-up as well. Although not really sure what's going on here. Some strangeness. Some sort of temporary ride. So they do have these structures. You can tell that this one is not old world, but you can tell that this one is not built by the same people, as far as I'm concerned. Or this one, and this one back here. Quite a difference. And there we have it. Let's look a little bit closer. The ornate fountains are just absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that can be temporary. If you've got water running through it constantly for 6 months, and any sort of temporary materials, that thing is going to deteriorate. And this is the music hall. It had quite a spectacular organ in it. So this is the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York, 1901.
What role did the World's Fairs play in introducing forgotten technology?
And right up there with the Chicago Exhibition of 1893 is the Louisiana Purchase Exposition of 1904, held in St. Louis, Missouri. As far as scale goes, this one vastly eclipsing the rest of them. This was a 1,200 acre fair grounds that they used. We're told there were over 1,500 buildings. And you can see it lit up here. Supposedly built to commemorate the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 from the French, I believe. And, of course, temporary structures, as always. And this one ran from April to December, having just about 20 million visitors, we were told. And this one has a little bit more of a longer timeline for construction as well. Seeds of this happening 1899, 1900, so they're giving a good 4-year chunk of time to get all this stuff done. And then you can see the need to downplay the majesty of these structures for me is a major issue with these World's Fairs. Why you would look at this and say, well, that's just temporary, let's just shrug it off. To me is absurd, and it's a way to steer you away from looking any closer at the World's Fair. This building still stands, and it's made out of brick, but apparently it was made for the exhibition as an administration building. And you can get a sense of the scale too. You see the people down here, the size of the statues. The Palace of Liberal Arts, of course. It's a strange part of the narrative with a lot of these World's Fairs had to do with the human zoos or displays they put on, such as this, where they're trying to portray the people from different areas of the world in their natural habitat and their natural setting. I wonder if we're looking at a setting of the narrative for the fairgoers. Remember, 20 million people are going to be seeing what this fair has to offer, and it certainly would be a way to cement the narrative of the history that those who put on the fairs want the people to know. All temporary, remember. And of course you get these types of displays at these fairs. It's sort of where they began displaying a lot of these dinosaur bones, and the chronology of biology brought to us by the likes of Darwin comes up here so often on this channel. And we have more of the human zoo, or the displays for the people to observe how the people of the world live. So there's definitely an ugly side to these fairs, I think. We're just touching on that briefly here. But again, all this temporary, very difficult to build. Even you can't build this temporarily. I just can't see how that's even possible. These are magnificent structures, massive openings. Looking like we've got rubble everywhere down here too, not making a lot of sense for what should be a brand new construction. All of this should be brand new. A strange way you would see rubble. And there you see the Ferris wheel again, or a Ferris wheel. They'll tell us it's the same Ferris wheel that shipped it from Chicago to St. Louis over that time period between the two fairs, about a 10-year time period. Reassembled it, and after the this fair, it gets eventually gets dismantled and destroyed. So the Louisiana Purchase exhibition. This one definitely needs as many eyes on it as possible. They all do, really, and that's the reason I make this video. I want you to know about these, for one, and I certainly encourage you to dig a little deeper. And that 3-part series I mentioned at the beginning of this video is definitely highly recommended if you want to see it through the lens of stolen history.
Did someone secretly destroy remnants of old world structures under the pretense of a temporary exposition?
And the final fair I wanted to mention in this video would be the Panama Pacific International Exposition, jumping ahead to 1915 in San Francisco. This one was held to commemorate the completion of the Panama Canal, we are told. But also supposedly a way for the people of San Francisco to showcase their city after the devastating 1906 earthquake and subsequent fire. And researchers have heavily scrutinized this as an impossibility. While the city is trying to rebuild, they also decide to construct these types of structures. This looking like a lot of permanent type buildings we see across the realm, across the country, where we have the writing inscribed up here. Then you have all this detail involved with the structure itself. So they have to ask the question, is this temporary, and why on earth would you make it in such a manner if it is temporary? Here we have some griffins. Now this is the Palace of Fine Arts, a bit of a strange narrative surrounding this one. We'll see as we go through the slides here. Supposedly it was demolished in the 60s and reconstructed. And there is a little bit of, there are some construction photos of that, or reconstruction photos, I guess. And we'll see as we move forward. This is the Tower of Jewels. And again, you can see how small the people are and how vast this thing is. It's absolutely ridiculous. So the people of San Francisco had time to build like this, as well as building all the permanent structures in their city in that less than 10-year period from the fire and the earthquake. And there it is again, Palace of Fine Arts. And there it is in the modern day. So they say they rebuilt this out of permanent materials in the 60s, and here it stands with its permanent materials. But researchers have dug quite deeply into this one and discovered that there's a lot of aging that doesn't make sense for that 50-year time period that they tell us this was reconstructed. And of course, why wouldn't the reconstruction be heavily celebrated in that 60s, 70s time period? Here's a good example of temporary materials being used for these fairs. And this probably would be more of that plaster type of material. You can see looking kind of hokey, certainly not matching the majesty of what we're seeing here, the symmetry and the majesty. Truly, truly incredible. Looking like something out of Spain or Italy. And the history of San Francisco is highly suspect and has been brought to the forefront in this field of research. Temporary materials. Of course, you have the lighting, the Tower of Jewels lit up like a Christmas tree. And I think I'll leave it there for now. So this has been a compilation of the highlight cities, I think, of the early World's Fairs and the setting of a new narrative in America. And let me know what you think. Are you inclined to believe the official version of history, or do you think, after looking at these visuals and hearing some of the timelines, that something does not add up? Thanks for watching. This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.